if I do my job right in prep, I always feel like the shooting should be boring. The previs aspect of this movie is not what made the on-set part excruciating as much as there were so many technical things to, a child actor has to be gone in 6 hours. She can only be on the set for so many hours at a time, and then she has to go back into school, and then she has to be there for a certain, so you have that, you're juggling that. Then you have a room in the middle of your soundstage that looks like a fucking NBC Studios. It's running every videotape feed of every monitor that's switching back and forth that goes to the panic room, and we have multiple panic rooms. And so you have, so you're setting up a shot in there. You have to get the actress, the minor actress out and back into rehearsal. And then one of your tape machines goes down on your, and now you don't know when that's going to be back up. And you've got a leak that's happening in the kitchen and the flooring is screwed up. And so in that respect, this movie was just plagued. The movie was a drag to make from that standpoint. It wasn't that the movie was boring because I'd already made the movie. I did feel like I made the movie 3 times. But I'd rather be prepared and bored than excited and, hemorrhaging cash and looking like a fucking moron. Previs at this point is expensive. But, the prices of it, like the prices of visual effects, the prices of it will come down. It's simply 21st century storyboarding. That's all. Your expectations are different on the first day of shooting than they are on the 100th day of shooting. On the 100th day of shooting, you're like, if I can finish this and not shoot myself or anyone else around me, I will have done good work. On the first day, you're trying so hard to kind of like make sure that this gets polished and that gets polished and that you're building on the right thing, and you're so I don't really, first days to me are usually sort of debilitating because I kind of go, oh God, I forgot, it's not going to go like clockwork. It's a fucking movie. It's just like all those movies. It's just like all those other movie experiences. It's just going to be a lot of plodding and hard work. So, usually for me, it's like the reality begins to rear its ugly head. And you go, oh my God, look at all this perfect previs, and look at all these great little close-ups I have designed and these storyboards. And now look, these actors, for some reason, they can't get through 8 pages of dialogue in 3 minutes. What is wrong? So I go through that. I go through the whole, how disheartening. It's just like normal movie making. The hardest overriding reality is that, you read something, you read a script and you go, oh, that would make a neat movie. And then you're never going to enjoy that movie in the same way that you did reading it that one time. Because then the second time you read it, of course, you know it. And the third time you read it, you're breaking it down and starting to go, well, who would I get? And how would I do this? And then you go and you take a year, in this case, the case of this movie, a year to shoot it. Starting and stopping and building the set and previs and all that stuff. It took like 9 months of pre-production, 6 months of shooting, 8 months of post or something. The thing that got you excited is the first thing lost in a 2-year process. The reason you wanted to do it is the first thing that you have to jettison in terms of your enthusiasm. And you're always trying to hold on to that memory of what it was like when you first read it and were excited by it. And then, of course, the rest of the time, for the next 2 years, you're not excited by it. You're just behind and over and behind schedule, over budget, not getting the work the way you want it. It's not as succinct as it should be. You add another camera and trying to figure out a way to get a setup ahead, and all you've done is make things take an hour longer to light, and so now you might as well be shooting the other setup and all that. I don't know if this movie is specifically a footnote movie. I sort of feel like all movies, you gotta kind of go in with the idea that this isn't the one that defines you, because I think people get too caught up in the legacy that they're leaving, and that's why I sort of like thrillers. I like this movie because it's not really about crime or any kind of sociology. It's just it's a lurid thriller. It's a Friday night movie. It's not supposed to be that important, and I think that a lot of people get questions when you release a movie that what were you trying to say? It's like, I don't know. I was just trying to say that two chicks got caught in a closet and three guys tried to get in and they burned the place down. But I don't know. I guess the footnote movie aspect is that it's not supposed to be taken too seriously. What Hitchcock once said, I'm not making slices of life, I'm making slices of cake. And I think that, it's important to, we're not curing cancer. We're just making a movie with actors pretending to be burglars. I remember reading the script and going, and flipping the pages till I got to the part where she goes out after the cell phone and then she tries to find it and she tries to grab it and it slides further into the bed, and I was sitting there going, oh my God, you can't do this. And then she knocks the lamp over. It's like, no one will sit still for this. And this is one of the things that I think David Koepp is really great at. And he just smiled and he said, if you're going to make a movie like this, and this is a date movie and it's a Friday night movie, you got to have her go for the cell phone and you got to have her miss it and it's got to continue to slide. She's got to knock over the thing. They got to hear it and they got to run up the stairs. I said, okay, look, if we're going to do this, then I'm going to do it in slow motion. And he said, okay, now you're with the program. Now you got the right attitude. So if you're going to do something as kind of bald-faced as this, you've got to just go all the way and make it as, if you're going to pander.
No, we won't.
I think casting's a big part of the job in that there are certain tangible things that an actor as a human brings to a role. I think that Forrest would have a hard time playing somebody who is evil. He genuinely doesn't have that. I think it would be hard for Jared Leto to play somebody who is naive because he's just not that. Jodie Foster can play a lot of things. Stupid ain't one of them. Actually, there was a movie we were talking about doing at one point. I wanted her to play Marion Davies, somebody who was generally thought to have been sort of ditzy and not particularly bright, but all the people who knew her thought she was really sharp and really insightful. And I love the idea of somebody really smart playing somebody who, and let her try to cover up the fact that she's really smart. And then as we get in closer and closer, you're going to kind of go, oh, wow, there's really something going on in there. So I think each actor is a buffet, and there's certain things that you're going to ask them to do. In most cases, it's on display. You're just editing. You're just kind of going, really, you think chips and guacamole here? I was kind of seeing sort of like the teriyaki tenders, Maybe start with that and then go to like a deviled egg. There's a whole thing that they have to offer, and it's sort of your job to not lead them toward the thing that they can probably do well, but it just isn't appropriate. So yeah, I don't know that casting is 90% of the job, but I think casting is good casting and good writing never hurt a movie. What's that line from Death Trap? It's so good even a talented director couldn't fuck it up. So that's it. I think you try to kind of get to a place where enough things are in motion that even a talented director can't fuck it up.
The end of 7 is all handheld because it feels like that's what should be happening at that point. This movie, I wanted to say to the audience, this is all very measured and intended, and then do things like have people have seizures and have people get their fingers cut off and have these horrible things happen. And there's like a sense of, I think it instills or creates sort of a sense of dread for the audience when they go, everything I'm seeing is very specific, and now the victims are mounting. I just love the idea of this omniscience. Like the camera doesn't give you, it just goes over here kind of perfectly, and then it kind of goes over there kind of, and it stays with this person, and it doesn't have any personality. There's no, oh wait, let's see this over here. This might be interesting to somebody. There's none of that sort of documentary kind of feel to it. It's very much like what's happening was doomed to happen. And I like that as the sort of psychological underpinning of the staging. Straw Dogs is a movie I've always admired because it's so visceral. It's funny, it makes women hate men and men hate women in equal measure. And It's got to be one of the best Peckinpah movies, and here's our homage to the poster. I wanted to make a movie that had, where the brutality meant something, where it didn't just, and that's a pretty good model for that, because that movie is truly brutal.
I often liken a movie crew and the making of a movie as it's like a team in their season. And it's difficult, once you sort of set a pace, or you set the relationships on a set take on a kind of, hopefully, a productive momentum. And when you start and stop, and you have to go back and reshoot stuff. We did a lot of reshooting. We had a lot of problems with Panavision and their lenses. We had a lot of equipment failure, and we ended up reshooting days of material on this movie for Technicranes, slopping Technicranes, lenses that would go out of alignment and lose focus when they were tilted down a certain number of degrees. Nicole getting hurt. We had makeup problems with certain things. We had staging problems. We rewrote some scenes and went back and redid them so we could get other information. So we reshot probably 9 days. We had 15 days of stuff that we had to reshoot when we lost Nicole. But we had probably 9 days of other stuff, just technical stuff. And when you're trapped in one house and you have to go back and redo things that you've already done and redo them, it becomes really hard on people. You got 90 people there who are all kind of like, they don't feel like they're making any progress. They're caught in frozen molasses, and everybody's nerves get frayed. I think on this movie we had 2 or 3 instances where people had to be escorted to their cars by security because they were so at their wits' end. It's an enormously complex movie, and it took its toll, and there were a lot of people left in its wake. It's like a football season or a basketball season. You discover, how deep your bench is. People go down, and people who are expected to perform at a certain level, things get in the way of that, and some people rise to the occasion, and, you win some, you lose some, and some are rained out. And on any given day, you're trying to not only do the work, but you're trying to accomplish something at a certain level, and it's not always possible. There are games during the 100 days it takes to make a movie that you're going to lose by 2 points. It's hard. There are scenes, I watch this movie now, and there are scenes I beat my forehead pink, thinking, my God, what was I thinking? Like, that was so dressed up and nowhere to go. It was so overly overbaked. I've only made 5 movies now, 4 movies, I don't know, 5 movies. So I haven't really made that many movies. I mean, by the time Hitchcock was my age, he'd made like 40 movies. So it's, Spielberg's made 35 or something like that. The one thing I've learned, and of course it's totally disingenuous, is that maybe the way to do it is to set a pace. Maybe you literally take the first 3 days of shooting, you schedule all the stuff you just don't give a shit about, and you shoot it as fast as you can so that everybody kind of goes, oh my God, that's the pace we're going to be working at? Yeah. And then you go back and you reshoot it at the end of the schedule somewhere, because it's stuff that you never really, but you kind of get everybody used to a way of working. And I started this movie off, with so much previs and pre-production and meticulousness that we kind of hit this pace of, we were getting 10 setups a day, 10 2-camera setups a day. You would think that that's enough. But this movie ended up being like over 2,000 setups. So we used every single day. I mean, we were literally behind the 8 ball the entire time. And it's amazing to think, you shoot a movie for, first 100 days. You would think, I made 7 in probably 65 days or 67 days. And this movie there was like, every time you shoot a day, there was like another day's worth of inserts to do. It was bogged. But, you learn that stuff.